Hello and welcome to the Fedora Files. I am Gregory Fedora. With me today is Rick Persons. Welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Gregory, thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. It's the first I've had a chance to talk publicly about the murder of Michael Jordan's father. So thank you for reaching out and touching base, and I'm looking forward to sharing the time with you.
Oh, definitely. I mean, when I heard about it, I think everybody heard about when Michael Jordan's father was murdered, and it was just like kind of shocking because it's Michael Jordan, and then to have all that go down. I don't want to spoil it because you know more than I do. I don't want to mess any of this up, but I kind of want to discuss you first to kind of so people can understand where you're kind of. You used to work for like Major League Baseball, and I believe you still work for the PGA Tour, and you're an executive producer for the television, correct?
Yeah, I started out coming out of college. I got a communications degree from Syracuse University and got a job with Major League Baseball and worked there in Manhattan for 5 years. And then in 1989, the PGA Tour began their television production company down in Jacksonville, Florida. They were previously in New York,
Mhm.
and they opened up the World Golf Village, and that was the whole plan was to put the PGA Tour Productions department in the World Golf Village. Well, it took an extra 8 years, 7, 8 years
Mhm.
before we actually moved into the World Golf Village. And I worked as a senior producer for the PGA Tour for 27 years and left there in 2016 to start Rosenlawn Media Partners to actually solely work on this documentary regarding the murder of Michael Jordan's father.
All right. So, what was it about the murder that drew your attention? Because I mean, you're obviously a sports guy, and so Michael Jordan is considered basically the greatest basketball player of all time. I mean, people argue, but about others, but basically, I mean, in our era, he was amazing. I mean, he did so much, and then his father gets murdered. What what was it about the murder, the case that you were just like, I needed dig deeper because it seemed to be to me like when it was going on, it was kind of like they caught the guy who did it, cut and dry, it's done. But there was something there that made you say, I think there's more to this. What was that?
Yeah, well, I can't take the credit for the digging part of it. I have to give that credit to my brother Bob, who he first thought, wait a minute, they say that James Jordan was shot at point blank range while asleep in his car, yet they didn't find a drop of blood in the vehicle.
Hmm.
And then the Jordan family, we found out that they didn't report it, they never reported him missing. He had been missing for 3 weeks, and they never reported a missing persons report. And then
Hmm.
third, the body of that allegedly they came to find out through dental records was James Jordan's body found in a swamp was cremated before it was ever identified.
Hmm.
So they found the body in a swamp in McCall, South Carolina, and immediately cremated it. Basically, they never bothered to look up to see if there were any missing persons reports. And I don't know if we'll have time to get into that, but there was actually somebody that was missing from the Bennettsville, McCall area in South Carolina at that time, and they went ahead and cremated the body anyway. That fit the
That's
description of the autopsy in the coroner. So I have to give the credit to initially my brother who uh, took all this information and then he wrote a manuscript
mhm.
about 200 pages long, based upon trial transcripts that he got, the 8,000 plus pages of the trial transcript that took, gosh, almost 2.5 months to be heard, and then took newspaper reports and put it all together and wrote a 200-page manuscript that basically said that the investigation didn't prove that the two kids, the 18-year-old kids, Daniel Green and Larry Demery, shot and killed James Jordan while he slept on the side of the road in Lumberton, North Carolina. And he wrote, I think it was about initially about a 6 or 8 page that would be suitable for a magazine article, and
Mhm.
sent it to me. I said, "Wow, this is pretty cool." Well, that led to the manuscript. And in 1999, he was working as a banker in Boston, and I was working as a producer with the PGA Tour. And neither of us were. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead a bit. Um, we tried to get it published, and I
Mhm.
figured with my uh, uh, friends in the media in the PGA Tour, I could make some connections and see if we couldn't get it published. And I don't know if you remember David Gilday.
Mhm.
David worked for the PGA Tour, and his father was a writer for the Washington Post, a sports writer. And Bob sent his manuscript to William Gilday, and he read it from a flight from D.C. to Chicago, and called my brother from the airport and said, "This is great. We got to get this thing published." And
Hmm.
gave it to his publisher at the Washington Post. And the publisher said, "Well, we need first person accounts. We don't have that in uh, this manuscript." Well, like I said, Bob was a banker, and I was a television producer. Both doing very well in our craft, and weren't willing to break off and do this on our own, and leave our respective businesses.
Hmm.
So we let it sit for 10 years. It didn't do anything for 10 years. And then in 2009, the subject of Michael Jordan's father's murder came up at a Thanksgiving dinner that we were having at the house, and I decided to pick up his book again.
Hmm.
And when I did, uh, I I mean I read it like in no time. It just is it's such a good read, and I called him up. Oh, I'm sorry. So I back in '99, the internet was still very much in its infancy, and so I started doing some investigating 10 years later in 2009. And I was like, wow, you can find newspaper articles right online now, and
Mhm.
read more about it. And I said, none of this makes any sense.
Yeah.
This is great stuff. So I immediately called my brother and I said, hey, how about I produce a documentary, and the people that we interview, you can use the quotes for your book. And he said, brilliant, let's do it. So
Nice.
since 2009, we've been working together, and it's been a labor of love for both of us. I mean, it's just been so much fun. But since 2009, we've been working on this project, and
Hmm.
I had hired a woman out of WRAL in Raleigh, North Carolina, to do our interviews back in 2009, and we had I'd make some phone calls and got some people to be a part of being interviewed. And what we found was far more exculpatory than we ever expected. And we just, our jaws were dropped because basically we started from the very beginning.
Mhm.
We didn't believe what the investigators were telling us, that James Jordan was shot in his car, that he was thrown in a swamp, and that his body was cremated, you know, without any identification. It didn't make any sense to us. And when we interviewed the police officer who found James Jordan's Lexus abandoned and stripped in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and asked him about the car, what he explained to us was that it didn't make sense to him either.
Hmm.
Um, that when we talked to people at the swamp where the body was pulled from the swamp, uh, they don't believe that the body could have been thrown off the bridge, which was the story that they said these two kids did, and floated a quarter of a mile down a slow-moving creek with two 90-degree turns. And then, as you can see in the footage, the picture behind me
Mhm.
is the body, the lone picture. There was only one picture taken of the body in the swamp, and you can see he's a foot and a half above the water, draped over a branch.
Hmm.
Now, how does a body float a quarter of a mile, avoiding two 90-degree turns without getting caught up, and then pop up on top of a branch a foot and a half above the water? It can't be happen.
Yeah.
It can't happen.
So
So
I have a question. Like, so
yeah,
you said the car was in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
yep.
How far away is this swamp?
It's about an hour, hour and a half by car.
That's still, I mean, and how old at the time? You said there's two teenage. How old were they?
18 years old.
They're 18.
Yeah,
I To me that right there, that's with like 18 year. I was 18 once, and
we all were.
I don't think. I mean, I don't recall thinking so clearly that if I shot someone in here, got the car to Fayetteville, like where did they say he was shot?
They
Was
said,
it in
well,
Fayetteville?
they said he was shot in between,
In
halfway
between.
between both those two locations in
So
Lumberton, North Carolina.
So they're saying that two 18-year-olds shot this man, Michael Jordan's father. One took the car to Fayetteville to have it stripped. The other took the body to a swamp or a bridge, apparently, and threw the body over it. Like, if they were to do this, like to throw a body over a bridge, it's not an easy matter. You'd need two people, probably. I don't know where the bridge is, but I'm assuming you'd want two people. But to do both things, I just don't see two 18-year-olds like thinking that clearly after killing someone. I see two 18-year-olds shooting someone and getting out of there. And like, that's it. We shot this guy. We should go, because more than likely, if they did shoot him, that wasn't the plan. The plan was probably steal the car, and then we shot this guy. They're not going to be thinking we have to hide the body. I mean, at most, they may pull the body out, dump it, take the car. Why would you go that extra effort of driving an hour and so away to dump a body if you just wanted to steal a car? It doesn't, because carjackings happen all the time, and you don't see people hiding bodies.
Well,
And
so glad you said that because it doesn't make any sense, does it? But
no,
basically, it makes even less sense when you hear what the actual police theory
oh,
was
what is
that
that?
was the fact that they killed James Jordan while he was sleeping in his car, dumped his body in a swamp 45 minutes away from Lumberton, then went joyriding for 3 more days, showing it off to family and friends.
Hmm.
Now, if you've shot a man inside his car, you're going to believe that there was blood in the car,
Oh, yes.
and you're not going to. If your intent was to steal the car, you're not going to drive it around for another 3 days and show it off to family and friends,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right. Well, I saw Pulp Fiction. You have to get a special guy to help clean it,
Mm.
and so in order to get rid of all that. I mean,
Well, and
like
and
shooting
that's
someone close range in a car, it's going to be, and there'll probably be bullet holes in the car as well. And it's like, I don't know that you're right. None of this is so far what you've told me. None of it makes sense, like what they're saying.
no,
So,
and that's just it. Is that everything that we've found, every person that we've talked to, every eyewitness that we've shared the story with, don't agree with the official story,
hmm,
and so therefore we continue to search. And as we have, I have become. We ended up interviewing Daniel Green, the alleged trigger man, in
okay,
prison, and it was Larry Demery who eventually confessed to the crime and said that it was Daniel who actually shot James Jordan at point blank range. And so when we went and interviewed Daniel in 2010,
mhm,
um, I mean, I gave him my address and phone number. Well, I guess back then we couldn't call each other, but today we talk on the phone nearly every day.
mhm,
But back then in 2010, we were writing, and I could show you some of the letters that he's written. I mean, 18 pages front and back, long letters that clearly show that he would not have been somebody that would kill somebody and then drive around in his car for 3 days. Much too intelligent to do something as stupid as that.
mhm.
So, but the media promoted it. The media fell in line with the investigators, hook, line, and sinker. And that's the story that we've all been told to believe, but it's not the truth at all.
So I'm quite now. You said the Larry guy. He confessed to being a part of it and immediately said, "But Daniel's the one who shot him."
That's correct.
What kind of deal did Larry get out of this?
Yeah,
What was
well,
his get out of jail free type of card for this?
oh, absolutely. Well, Larry had crimes that he had committed prior to the murder of James Jordan, which he was facing the maximum of 240 years in prison.
Oh wow.
He had robbed a convenience store clerk, and when she came chasing after them, he hit her over the head with a cinder block,
Oh,
and she had severe brain damage from that, and some other crimes, drug related, I believe they were. But I'm though we never found out exactly what the agreement was between Larry Demery and the prosecution. I can only assume that they said, "Look at Demery, we're going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the 240 years that you're facing, unless you confess and tell us, or not tell us, but agree to tell the story that we're going with."
mhm,
The fact that the investigators had a story prior to arresting Green and Demery uh, signifies to me that the whole thing, that the two guys were scapegoats. They were set up
mhm,
for this, and being 18-year-old kids with a criminal past, it was going to be easy to set them up.
mhm,
Um, and that's kind of what I believe. And because Demery uh, testified against Daniel Green, yeah, he got a sweet deal. He got a
mhm.
nice plea deal. To he's eligible for parole in 2024, in
Oh,
August 6, 2024. They both got life sentences, but Demery will be eligible for parole in August 6th of 2024.
and probably will get it because that may have been part of the deal.
I,
Um,
I'm surprised he didn't get it back in 2013, because that was really when the agreement should have taken place, based upon what I believed. I mean, 20 years, basically, a life sentence is 40 years, and
mhm,
you're eligible for parole at half of that. So he would have been eligible for parole in 20 years, which would have been in 2013. And I'm so surprised that he didn't get the benefit of that plea deal back then. So
yeah,
I can only imagine that part of the reason why is that Bob and I started sticking our nose into places that we weren't supposed to, and they got a little bit nervous about releasing him too soon.
mhm.
And so,
It would only add fuel to the fire,
yeah,
really.
and it's amazing, when we started, uh, you know, Daniel's been trying hard since he lost his appeal in 2000 to get his case heard and get back into court.
Mhm,
And he had an attorney, Carlton Mansfield, who was assigned to him as an indigent defense attorney, who did absolutely nothing for 8 years, and finally claimed that there was no merit to any of what Daniel Green was saying about his innocence in the
mhm,
case, and requested the judge to release him from the case. So there was 8 years of Daniel's life that was totally wasted by an ineffective attorney, and to me, I think a corrupt attorney, and should lose his license if this ever becomes public.
hmm. So the story really does kind of remind me. I think it was the Central Park Five, those five boys who were accused of raping a woman, and then they went to prison for years, and it actually screwed them up even more. It seemed like, and when they got out, like some of them had no real record of anything, and then suddenly they've been thrust into this, and now their lives are, they finally got out, but some of them were still just really messed up. And so, like Daniel, you said, does he have an alibi of some kind? Has he told you where he was when all this happened? And what is your theory on what really happened?
Well, I don't really have a theory on what really happened.
Hmm.
I just know that the way it was investigated, and the way that all the information is being lied and told to the media is not, the official story is not so official.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't gel.
it doesn't gel. Daniel's alibi is that he was at a friend's house um, with a young lady on his lap, and that Demery came and at the early morning hours of like December, or excuse me, November. When was this? July 23rd, and told Daniel, "Hey, we got to go do something. Yeah, I need your help." And Daniel's attitude was, "No, I got this cute girl sitting on my lap. We're making out, and I'm
Hmm.
not going anywhere. I'm not going to leave this. I'm an 18-year-old kid with hormones, and I'm having a good time."
That
And
story sounds more legit than the one that the police are trying to like.
exactly, exactly. And so apparently Demery went off and went without Daniel, and then came back 4 hours later at 5:30 in the morning,
Mhm.
and was all shaken and nervous and scared. And according to Daniel, Larry told him, "I killed a guy."
Hmm.
And so Daniel, being the loyal friend since the third grade, they've been friends since grade school. Uh, Daniel felt, okay, I'm going to be a loyal friend and help him out, and we'll see what we can do to take care of the situation. And it was at that point that they found a body, put it inside the red Lexus that was on the side of the road,
Mhm.
and then drove it 45 minutes northwest of Lumberton to McCall, where Demery says that he threw the body off the bridge into the swamp, or the two of them threw the body into the swamp.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's from that point that I don't think makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I don't think the body could have floated to where they found it, and then been a foot and a half above the water, draped over a branch. The
Yeah.
fact that the police didn't have a true crime scene there at the time, they had called the McCall Rescue Squad, the EMTs, to come and remove the body before they even did a crime scene investigation. So
Hmm.
uh, there was no crime scene investigation. And I asked the EMTs, "Did you see anybody taking photographs before you got there?" And they said, "No, we didn't see anybody taking photographs. There weren't any police officers there at the location when they pulled the body out of the swamp." So that doesn't make any sense to me either.
No.
Why wouldn't there have been a crime scene investigation? So
Hmm. So,
none of this makes any sense.
no,
Yeah,
it
it
doesn't.
doesn't.
Um, I'm trying to. So, why do you feel the police did that? I mean, is it just they just wanted to close it? That like were they like when they found out that Michael Jordan's father was down there, like, and they think this is my, they just went, we got to close this case. We got these two boys. We know for sure. Like it seems like we know for sure that Larry had something to do with it, and then Daniel just got sucked into this, and they're just like, we have these two boys, and then Larry obviously had a much deeper corruption, and so they're like, we can twist him to get him to say what we want. And then when a case closed, we solved the case for Michael Jordan. Is that, I mean, that's what it feels like. It's like they
Well,
just
yeah,
wanted to get it done and be like, we did it,
yeah,
you know?
and that's what you're going to hear a lot is that when something doesn't make sense and the investigation was quick, the response has always been in every case that I've ever read that didn't make sense. That, oh, the authorities just wanted to be quick and get it done over with, and not concern the Jordan family or the general public that there were killers on the loose.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, uh, I don't believe that was the real reason. Uh, I believe that there was a, you know, basically what Daniel Green's defense team tried to present at trial was that it was a drug deal gone bad.
Hmm.
And if you take a map of Lumberton, North Carolina, and drive from Miami to New York via I-95, Lumberton, North Carolina is right off of 95 and
Mhm.
exactly halfway between both cities.
All right. Yeah.
So, and it's a perfect place for uh,
Exchanges and such.
exchanges of, and then you've got I-74, State Route 74 that goes west,
Mhm.
and then so if drugs are being exchanged to go to Miami and then west, that's a perfect place to do it.
Mhm.
And apparently, it was known for that. So I could get into Robeson County, and the corruption in that county was rampant.
Mhm.
Um, it's a unique county because the demographics are 30% white, 30% black, and 30% American Indian.
Hmm.
Very, very unusual that you would have such a diverse demographic such as that. Um, and unfortunately, the white community was in control,
Mhm.
both in the courts and in the police department. And it was rumored at the time that the sheriff of Robeson County, Hubert Stone, was a drug uh, czar, if you will.
Hmm.
He had control of the drug trade in the area, and was manipulating the 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 whole situation, and got his police force or his sheriff department to fall in step.
Hmm.
And there was a situation where the FBI in 2010 did an investigation into the Robeson County and called it Operation Tarnish Badge, and 23 sheriff's deputies were fired based upon different things of corruption that they found. I think probably 80% of them pled guilty to, I think it was cable TV theft,
Wow.
a much lesser case to plead guilty to. But yeah, 23 sheriff's deputies because of that were gone. They were never able to prove that Hubert Stone had any connection to the drug trade in the area.
Mhm.
Um, but the one unique thing to this case that Bob was able to discover was that there was a phone call made after James Jordan was allegedly murdered from the cell phone in James Jordan's Lexus, and that it was connected to a Hubert Larry Deese, who was, we now know, the illegitimate son of Hubert Stone, and a
Hmm.
known drug dealer in the Robeson County area who went to federal prison in 1994 for selling drugs.
Listen.
So if you make the connection, okay, you can say that, oh, Hubert Stone was probably connected to the drug trade.
Mhm.
Um, and what we have since found through the help of early on Daniel Green's post conviction relief council, they were able to find that Hubert Larry Deese had been riding around in the sheriff's deputies' cars and made friends with the sheriff's deputies. And you can only assume that perhaps he was pointing out his competition in the area, and it would give the opportunity for the sheriff's deputies to arrest his competition and probably share the profits with Hubert Larry Deese to continue to do what he was doing.
That's
Now, that's all speculation, but it's a pretty strong theory based upon the knowledge that he was friends with these sheriff's deputies and that he had been doing ride-alongs with them. So, but the defense during the trial for Daniel Green tried to submit this into evidence, and the judge wouldn't hear it. Said
hmm.
it was all rumors. There was no connection that Hubert Larry Deese was the illegitimate son of the sheriff, and that there was no connection to Larry Demery as being having any connection to Larry Demery in the drug trade.
Hmm.
Well, fast forward in my investigation back in 2009, I came across a wedding announcement, believe it or not, in the newspaper, Hubert Larry Deese's wedding announcement, and
Mhm.
it would say, it would list the groomsmen and the bride and what she was wearing and all this good stuff. And I it says where Larry Deese works, and Hubert Larry Deese worked at Crestline Mobile Homes, which is also where Larry Demery worked.
Hmm.
So I said, "Aha! We've found the connection that
They,
Hubert Larry Deese and Larry Demery knew each other." And then Bob took it a step further and found a county deed of property that was sold and well, actually bought by Hubert Stone for Hubert Larry Deese, with both Hubert Larry Deese's and Hubert Stone's signatures on the document, on the deed, for property for like $425,000 property or home in the Robeson County area. So then we made the connection that, okay, they were related.
mhm.
And ever since this came out, and Daniel's defense attorneys submitted this as evidence in 2014, an article came out interviewing Hubert Larry Deese, who admitted to, yes, he worked at Crestline Mobile Homes, and yes, he was the son of Hubert Stone, but he had no connection, he said, to the murder of Michael Jordan's father.
That's
So
incredible.
it's unbelievable, and the fact that the jury was never allowed to hear that evidence, and now that it's been made public, and we've had at least three hearings for Daniel Green to get a just an evidentiary hearing, not even a new trial. He's been denied
Hmm.
getting the opportunity of having an evidentiary hearing, and that was back in 2018. This has been, going on for that long.
That's
The judge denied, saying, "No, there's not enough evidence here to have even an evidentiary hearing," and it's been crazy. It's been crazy.
that is that's so. I mean, all this it's like the tip of the iceberg, and it just keeps expanding, and it's the corruption sounds like it's still there. And I, so what are you hoping? You've been working on the documentary. You've been putting it. Are you going planning to show it somewhere? Are you how are you trying to get this out so people can see it and hopefully help Daniel, and like that people can see and possibly do more with it? And because obviously the hope is to help him and get the truth out on him and help him tell his story, because it's once you're behind bars, it's hard to get your story out. You're pretty much they're like, oh, he's done it, he did it. And what is your hope for this documentary? How are you pushing it?
Well, to back up just a little bit, since we've started sticking our nose into things, there have been some podcasts and some documentaries and plenty of news articles that question what actually transpired, and whether James Jordan was actually murdered the way we've been told to believe he was. And I think there was a podcast called "How It Really Happened."
Mhm.
Um, I think no, I'm sorry. That was a CNN documentary that came out. Um, there was a Andrew Jenks documentary that came out that initially was wondering whether Michael Jordan's gambling had anything to do with the murder of his father. And then there was a podcast that came out done by a radio station in Chicago, 670 The Score, by two individuals that really did a nice deep dive into investigating the case. But they stopped right when there was, a strong possibility that if they continued to push further, they'd find more evidence, which is where Bob and I currently stand. Um, and then there was a documentary that just came out. I think it was what back uh, April 9th, I think it may have been, called "The Moment of Truth," and this was a five-part series on Amazon Prime. That there was some great archival footage from WRAL TV, and included interviews with the woman that we hired to do our documentary, Amanda Lamb, and Christine Muma, who is currently Daniel Green's post conviction relief attorney, who's the director of the North Carolina Center on Actual Innocence.
Hmm.
So we've met with both those women, and they both know pretty much a lot of our evidence. And so they went ahead and created a documentary on their own. But again, Ken, I believe that that is just a wonderful primer for what's to come with our documentary. I think there's so much more that we have that hasn't been exposed yet that we are in the process now of getting that information out. We're trying to connect ourselves with a production company to buy our story, to find a place where it could air, whether it would be a Netflix or an Amazon Prime or any of these other wonderful streaming services that are out there now. We feel as though a strong production company could tell this story and tell it in our voice, and show what we've done to get to this point. Because I'm 100% confident that there would be nothing going on, and Daniel would still be rotting in prison with no attention whatsoever if we hadn't stuck our noses back in 2009. And that's really when things started to happen positively for Daniel.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. I know I told you I wouldn't keep you too long, so we're getting close to the end here, and I appreciate you coming on. And I'd love for you to come back as you get more information, or if you find that deal where you can come and tell us where what your deal is and where we could possibly see. Because my mind is blown. Because I honestly, like I said, I knew nothing other than I knew Michael Jordan's father was killed and they caught the guys and it's done. And like just in this conversation alone, you've already got my head like twirling, like it's none of it's making sense. And so you've already sold me in wanting to see this. So thank you for coming on, and please say you'll come back.
Oh, I'd love to, and there's so
And
much more, Gregory,
yeah,
that I have to share that we don't have time for, and that's why
I'm
this would be a 10-part series of a documentary.
I think I would like to have you come on as a part two, and then when you can, and we can go from where we ended here and tell more, because I'm sure the people listening are like, this is fascinating. They probably want to hear more now too, because I do, but I know we're short on time today. But so thank you so much. And do you have a website where people can kind of see
Yeah, I
more of
sure
this?
do. It's www.rosalandmedia rosalandmedia.com.
All right, Rose.
ROSALAN media.com.
Okay.
rosalandmedia.com. Thank you.
So yeah, great. So then go there and check it out, and send him feedback, because there's probably a way to send you feedback. And if you were in the area and you know anything about it, please contact Rick and let him know. Maybe he can you can help open up some more doors that people don't know. Maybe there's a witness out there that saw something and they just didn't know where to go, and maybe they've heard this and they're willing. Who knows? Uh, Again, thank you for listening. And as always, stay safe and keep searching.